Landman is back this week with Season 2, Episode 8, and as we move closer to the end of the second season, I can't help but feel increasingly disappointed with the direction the show has taken. Much like last week, this episode feels strangely empty, almost like filler, with very little actually happening to move the story forward. When the credits rolled, it genuinely felt like the only meaningful takeaways were the two meetings Tommy Norris had, one with Cammy and the other with Dan Morell. Everything else felt like background noise. I want to believe that the show is slowly building toward an explosive finale similar to what we got in Season 1, but at this point, Landman just doesn't feel like the same series anymore. That said, there were a few quieter, more emotional moments between Tommy and his father TL that hinted a possible turning point for Tommy's character. So with that, let's break down everything important that happened in the episode, go through the ending, and talk honestly about why this season feels so different. This is Landman Season 2, Episode 8, Ending Explained. Just a heads up, this video will contain spoilers. Usually I save my overall review for the end of the video, but this week I want to start with it because I feel like something needs to be said. I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but what has actually happened to Landman? This show barely resembles what we were given in Season 1. That first season was packed with tension, danger, sharp dialogue, and a real sense of consequence. There was action, death, conflict on the rigs, and genuine stakes. Season 2, on the other hand, feels like we're mostly watching Tommy drive from one meeting to another, having the same conversations in slightly different rooms. The essence of the show, the oil rigs, the workers, the sense of community, and the ever-present danger feels almost completely gone. I genuinely thought this episode was going to course correct a little when Cooper was assigned as project lead on the rigs that Tommy had taken away from him earlier in the season. That moment felt like it was setting up conflict, growth, or at least some kind of payoff, but nothing came of it. We never returned to that storyline, and it ended up feeling completely pointless. In Season 1, Cooper had a clear arc. He wanted to step out of his father's shadow and prove himself as his own man. That ambition has almost entirely disappeared this season. Now, the majority of his screen time revolves around his relationship with Ariana, which is fine, but it feels like the writers have forgotten there's more to his character than that. We didn't even see the aftermath of his proposal, which is how Episode 7 ended. That alone makes his storyline feel disjointed and poorly planned.
Another major issue, in my opinion, is the removal of the cartel element. That was a huge mistake. Last season, there was a constant sense of physical danger. There were real enemies, real threats, and moments that genuinely made you uneasy. This season, the stakes are mostly financial. Yes, losing hundreds of millions of dollars is serious, but it doesn't carry the same tension as someone's life being at risk. In Season 1, we had unforgettable moments. Tommy facing the cartel, workers dying in accidents, explosions on the rig, Cooper being targeted, Monty's death, and Tommy being taken by the cartel in the finale. I honestly can't think of a single moment in Season 2 that comes close to even the smallest of those scenes. It's also worth mentioning that Episode 7 reportedly received the lowest rating in the show's history, and Episode 8 doesn't really do much to reverse that trend. The story feels stagnant at a time when it should be accelerating toward a climax. On top of that, Angela and Ainsley continue to frustrate me. Their scenes increasingly feel disconnected from the core story, and their behavior often comes across as eye-roll-inducing rather than entertaining. Taylor Sheridan has proven with shows like 1883 and 1923 that he's capable of incredibly strong writing, which makes this season of Landman, especially the back half of it, feel oddly below his usual standard. I say all this not because I hate the show, but because I loved Season 1 and I know how good Landman can be. Now let's talk about the ending and where things leave our characters, starting with Tommy Norris. Throughout most of this season, Tommy has been scrambling to deal with the $400 million that Monty failed to invest into drilling before the rig was destroyed by the hurricane. Through Charles, Tommy learned there was only a 10% chance of actually striking gas at the new site. The odds were stacked completely against them. That's why he brought Rebecca and Charles to Cammy, hoping to convince her to take the insurance company to court instead of risking everything on a nearly impossible dig.
Cammy's response tells us a lot about who she's becoming. Despite the low odds, she refuses to back down because MTechs gave their word. Her line about, if we never keep our word, what's our word worth, perfectly sums up her mindset. Cammy is operating purely on principle, even if it leads to disaster. Since Monty's death, she's clearly alone. She has no one to confide in, no emotional support system, and her drive for success has become the only thing anchoring her. That hunger pushes her to take risks that might cost her everything, including the security of the Wolf Camp fields. After failing to change Cammy's mind, Tommy goes to see Dan Morell. Dan's decision to continue backing the project isn't rooted in loyalty or belief in success, it's pure self-interest. Because Cammy secured the loan with royalties, Dan stands to make an enormous profit when the company is eventually sold. No matter how this plays out, Dan wins. Cammy, even if she walks away with money, loses what actually matters to her: control and legacy. It's a bleak outcome that highlights how isolated Cammy truly is. One of the strongest parts of the episode, though, is Tommy's time with his father, TL. In the opening scene, TL falls into the pool, and later we see him open up emotionally about aging, about the curse of having a sharp mind trapped in a failing body. He's painfully aware that his life is nearing its end, and that awareness brings him to tears. This directly contrasts with Tommy, who has spent much of his life almost courting death through stress, chaos, and reckless decisions. TL's words from the previous episode, "You've got it all, but you're too stupid to see it," clearly stuck with Tommy. In this episode, we see him pause, breathe, and maybe for the first time, reflect. The final image of TL floating peacefully in the pool mirrors the opening scene, but in a much calmer way. It suggests acceptance, maybe even peace, and through that, it feels like Tommy is starting to realize that if he doesn't change, he'll end up just like his father, worn down by a life he never slowed down enough to appreciate.
Angela and Ainsley's storyline once again feels largely unnecessary. Their casino trip with the elderly residents, the makeover scene, and the weak dialogue all feel like filler. These moments eat up valuable screen time that could have been spent developing Cooper, the Riggs, or the central conflict. If these scenes were better written, they might be tolerable, but instead they feel cliché and disconnected. Rebecca's arc is also shifting. Once portrayed as a powerful, composed figure, she now seems increasingly vulnerable. Her conversation with Charles, where he suggests she'll end up a lonely, miserable woman, clearly strikes a nerve. It's obvious this is a fear she's already been grappling with, and it hints that her priorities may start to change as we head into the finale. Overall, Landman Season 2, Episode 8 left me disappointed. With only 2 episodes left, the show needs to find its footing fast. I still want to believe it can turn things around, but compared to how strong Season 1 was, this season feels like a missed opportunity. I'm cautiously optimistic, but the clock is ticking. So, there you have it. Landman Season 2, Episode 8, Ending Explained. If you want more breakdowns and reviews of Landman Season 2, check out the playlist on the channel. And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the final episodes. What did you think of this week's episode? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.